I don't get involved in the main business. So my job then is to work out how we keep growing. And so that has resulted in the last 12 months as buying 3 smaller companies and like bolting them in, shifting them into Fame. Some worked, some haven't. And so that's what I really see as the CEO's job is like, if you can get the management team to keep the main thing growing at a steady rate, it's the CEO's job to then work out how you move to the next level in terms of growth.
Everyone, and welcome back to the Success Clues podcast. This podcast is called Success Clues because success leaves clues, and the best way to achieve your goals is to learn from other people who have already achieved them. See, the smartest people learn from others. Most people learn from their own mistakes, and stupid people, well, they've already got the answers. Today, we're joined by the legend, Tom Hunt, who bootstrapped a podcast agency, Fame, to $4 million ARR.
Just over now.
Just over $4 million ARR, a completely remote team. Yeah. Which is seriously impressive. We're going to be diving into all things podcast, business growth, productivity, leadership, mindset, the lot. It's going to be a banger of an episode.
Well, hopefully we'll get some clues.
We're going to get lots of clues. So I actually was looking at your LinkedIn, and you weren't always an entrepreneur. You actually started off in corporate life. You spent a couple of years in corporate. How did you make that transition from corporate to starting your own business?
I think it took until I was 22 years old till I realized what I wanted to do. So I studied chemistry, medicinal chemistry actually, for 4 years. Tried to, before that, go into medicine, but my mum, who's a nurse, said, no, don't do that. And then we got to the end of the chemistry degree and I was like in a lab on my own trying to do experiments and I was rubbish. I didn't like it. So I was like, I'm going to do something else with people. And so it was either then finance or consulting because that's what all my peers were doing. And so I applied to like every bank, every consulting company, got one offer, which was at EY. And it wasn't even in like the consulting part. It was in a part called IT risk and assurance, which was like in advisory. But actually all we were doing was auditing IT systems before the finance people did the audit. So it was so dry. Anyway, got that offer. Spent 2 years there, you're right. And actually had a good time. Like did some cool stuff that I enjoyed. Learned how to send emails, run meetings, stuff like that. But then thought that I wasn't happy because of the type of work, checking password settings on IT systems.
Yeah,
and so then
surprised.
it was interesting. But anyway, so what I was thinking then is that I will be more happier if I go and get paid more and do better work. So I moved to Accenture, and there I was in consulting, the main consulting practice, but I was project managing a large outsourcing contract for a telco company. Right. And so we were like moving work to India basically from Europe. And again, like I had a good time generally, did some stuff that I liked, got a bit better at emails and meetings, but then ultimately realized that I didn't like being told what to do. And so this brings us to the start of 2014, where I set myself the goal of leaving Accenture by replacing my salary, which was like, I think 40K, with money that I made through my own business.
Okay, and you're how old at this point?
22, I think. So
okay.
like 2014. Oh no, it's 25. Shit. 24, 25. Yeah.
Okay, so what was that first, like, how did you start the business that replaced your salary? What was the first business? How did you get it going?
So I liked the internet, but I couldn't code. So it's really online marketing. Yeah. So it's like online marketing. And then I had experience in EY and Accenture in outsourcing. And so the first business was a team that I built in the Philippines that I then just added 100% to their salary and then sold it to startups in the UK. So over that year, built a team of maybe 4 or 5 people in the Philippines, and then had the revenue that was like maybe 10K a month minus expenses would basically cover the salary. Yeah. And so then I left Accenture start of 2015.
Okay, so that process wasn't actually too long between setting this goal
and replacing your salary. Did it in a year. In the year before that, I had got the entrepreneurship bug. We started a mail leggings company, went on Dragon's Den, etc. And I was doing some like small things on the internet with like buying small businesses or running Google Ads to affiliate offers and stuff. Yeah. But I became serious about that one thing in 2014, and then it took a year to be able to leave it.
Right. And then how does Fame come about? Because Fame is obviously the main business now. I know you invest in a number of other companies as well, which we'll dive into. But how does Fame come about?
So from 2015 till now, it's a decade. And so
it's mad that, isn't it?
All I've done, and then Fame is the second half. Looking back, the reality is I probably would have a bigger business and be richer now if I just kept doing that one outsourcing company. But I didn't, and I did like 10 other things in those 5 years. and then ran out of money. And so I had to get a job in 2018 as head of demand gen, because I had some good marketing skills by then. So head of demand gen at a B2B SaaS company. We start a podcast. I'm the host, and it ends up being quite good for my employer. And so I eventually leave, and then they become the first client of Fame. Still a client of Fame up till today, with actually leaving. Well, they're leaving because they got acquired. So they've been with us for 5 years. Anyway, so then all Fame is us just taking that process that we developed in-house at that B2B SaaS company and then copying and pasting it to hundreds of other B2B businesses.
How many clients have you worked with now since you started?
Between 250 and 300.
Okay, strong. I want to dive into that actual process and how you went from idea in one podcast really all the way up to where you are now, hundreds of clients and over 4 million ARR. But I'm curious to know, what do you do now? Like, what does a CEO of a $4.2 million ARR company do it every day?
Yeah, I'm trying to work that out, actually. Our head of ops, who basically does everything, was on mat leave for the last 9 months. And so I was doing head of ops, which was like HR for 70 people, which was a good experience, a learning experience, I'd say. But now they're the leadership team. And so my job is to manage them and lead those 3 people really well. But then also, because they're like, credit to them, basically running the business now. And so we have a leadership team meeting, and then they report, and then we all discuss. And so I don't get involved in the main business. So my job then is to work out how we keep growing. And so that has resulted in the last 12 months as buying 3 smaller companies and like bolting them in, shifting them into Fame. Some work, some haven't. And so that's what I really see as the CEO's job, is like, if you can get the management team to keep the main thing growing at a steady rate, it's the CEO's job to then work out how you move to the next level in terms of growth.
And when did you start to actually build out that leadership team? What sort of size company were you when you were like, right, I need these 3 people actually running the agency?
I think it was halfway through the journey when they started getting promoted. And I don't know if this is the right thing or not, but all of those people started as, we only basically hire entry level. So our entry level role in the account management team is the account manager. So they're basically responsible for the podcast. And then, so all 3 of those people have grown up through the company.
Yeah, nice.
And so have been with us for 3 to 4 years. There's pros and cons to that. It's often cheaper because you don't have to hire experienced talent. It's like good for the culture because people can see that their own peers are being promoted and we're not hiring people over them. But then on the downside, you are promoting people into roles that they've never done before.
Yep.
And so it might take longer because assuming that you as the manager of them can do the role, you have to train them how to do it.
Okay.
And so it did take a while because the head of growth had no marketing experience before he joined us.
Yeah.
And so it is a learning curve, but I probably wouldn't have chosen to do it a different way.
Yeah, we've done a similar thing, to be honest. Obviously, slightly smaller scale, but our director of client services now, Jake, was hired as personal, which is the equivalent of an account manager for you, a personal brand manager, and he's done every single role of every person he manages.
That's the dream, isn't it? Yeah.
Which is really good. Same with Satwik, who leads client strategy. He's done every single role of the people he manages. So we do a similar approach. I think it's nice for people to see that culture.
Exactly.
As well.
And so I totally agree. Like, it's very easy to manage people if you've done the role before.
Yeah.
But what you probably had to do with them, maybe, is teach them management skills.
Well, this is it. And you describe management as one of the most underappreciated or overestimated parts of a business. Right? It's something that's really, really important. And you're right. I mean, traditionally, if you have a job and you get good at a job, you tend to get promoted into a management position where you're not actually doing the job you were good at that got you promoted, and you're having to manage, which is a completely different skill.
Yeah.
So what's your approach to management?
No one goes to school for management. You're totally right. So it's really important to understand if someone wants to be an individual contributor or a manager. And so my approach to management, I think I've read shitloads of books, and the thing that really sticks in my mind, like the simplest way to answer that question, is by a book called Drive by Daniel Pink. And he basically says that people, when they work, want autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And so that's kind of one of the management philosophies we have in the company. So we try to enable all our managers to give that to their team. The other book that has heavily influenced our management style is High Output Management by Andy Grove. He was the founder of Intel or HP, one of them. And what I like about that is very tangible. There's 7 management activities, basically. And he explains that you have to, the skilled manager knows when to implement the different management approaches. I'll just give a quick example. One is just information consuming. So as a manager, you basically ask questions to understand stuff. You need to do that a lot, basically. But then one that has to be used very carefully is called meddling. So here's when you actually go in and do the thing that they're supposed to do. And there is a time for meddling if like the situation is the risks are significant, but then obviously that impacts the confidence of the managee.
Meddling sounds dangerously close to micromanaging.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah, so
slightly different.
If you meddle too much, then you could be seen as a micromanager. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And so what we've done internally is we have like pretty extensive, I think, management trainings when people, so from account manager to account director, the account director manages between 2 and 3 account managers. And so that's the real step. And most people haven't managed before. And so that account director training is based on mainly on those 2 books, some other stuff as well. Okay. And then they have to go through that in order to become an account director.
And how do you know you've got a good manager? What are some of the signs that you've done your training well?
So what I have done forever, I think, is called no agenda one-on-ones. And so here's twice a week, 50-minute chat with anyone in the business that I don't directly manage. And so people often won't, and so really what I'm getting is feedback from the people that my leadership team manage.
Interesting.
And so you can often, somebody in a no agenda one-on-one is not going to say that their manager, the person that reports to me, is rubbish or that they don't like them. But you can often like pick things up, like are they thriving? Do they say they love their manager, etc. So it's kind of a tool that I use to try and understand how the managers are performing. I think a good manager, you basically rarely get issues between them and other people, or they can manage those issues and they don't come to me. I've managed poorer managers, and then there's just all these issues bubbling up from below them in their team, which often you then have to deal with. That's a sign that maybe the management skills need to improve.
And how do you deal with a bad manager? Because it's going to happen, right? In a business at some point, you're going to have bad managers.
This is one of the things actually that I mentioned on LinkedIn about one of the things that if I did better, we would have grown faster, I think.
Okay.
Robust performance management process. In any business, obviously, but in a people business or agency, it's really, really important. And so we tried to reposition it into like a positive thing where we want everyone to perform and everyone has to perform to a certain level. Otherwise, it's not the right place for you. And so we have like essentially 4 or 5 steps that starts like very casual, like you need to improve this part all the way to someone being fired. And so we have just formalized this in the business where the leadership reviews this every week.
Okay.
And anyone can suggest to anyone that someone goes into this, but it's the head of department that has to approve it. And then we're just like much more formal about it with how the leadership team have to review it and how we communicate that to the team. And so a bad manager would have to go into that process if they're not performing well, because management, if their job, for the account director, it's like 80% of the job. So they wouldn't be performing if they're not managing well.
I'm starting to piece together your organizational structure. So I'd be interested to... So what's the setup now? I want to get a really clear picture of what the setup is. Like you're managing 3 direct reports.
It's actually 4, and I'll explain why. So we have growth, ops, and account management. So that's like the main business.
They're the 3 roles that you
manage. Exactly. So that's actually the leadership team.
Okay.
It's us 4. And so growth is responsible for getting new clients. Account management is responsible for retaining the clients and making them happy. And then ops is responsible for the general well-being of the company. The 4th one is because I mentioned those acquisitions. We have 3 mini acquisitions that account for maybe 15% of the revenue. And so that is under one person who is not on the leadership team, but reports to me because we haven't like integrated all those ops and everything.
Makes sense.
So that's the structure.
Okay. And then each of those, will they, I guess if we take, so you've got growth, account management, ops, I guess the account management will manage the account directors?
Exactly right. And there's like 5 or 6.
Okay, got it.
And then there's 16, I think, account managers.
Interesting. What are you optimizing for with that structure and how you run the business? Is there something you think about in terms of like, if this is happening, I know the structure and the management style of the business is working?
So I think the way we do this is the head of account management, her number is retention.
Mm-hmm.
And so she has to report that every week to the leadership meeting. Each account director, their number is the retention of we call it a pyramid. So it's the account director and 2 to 3 account managers. Mm-hmm. So their number is the retention of their pyramid. Yeah. And then each account manager, their number is the retention of their clients. And so it's quite clean in that we can have, it's actually one spreadsheet. Maybe it should be something more complex, but where we can see the retention of every account manager, every pyramid, and then the function as a whole. And so I think that structure is just very clean, where everyone has their own number, and then that rolls up nicely into the one number who's the head of the function who has to report it to the leadership group. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that is something that when I realized that, I was like, okay, this is very clean and clear, and this is how I can manage the head of account management easily.
Yeah, I like that. Retention, it's not the first time you've mentioned retention to me. We've spoken a couple of times before. Actually, you're big on retention.
Retention is the foundation of growth.
It is indeed. That's exactly the phrase you used previously when we were talking about this. So I think if I recall correctly, part of what you were saying to me previously was that you're not necessarily interested in hyping up your price and charging people as much as you possibly can. You're interested in charging people a rate where they're going to stay with you for years because it's such a no-brainer.
Yeah. So the way I look at this is, after being like a hardcore online marketer for 12 years, is that I actually don't think marketing is that important. If you look at the account management function has like 25 people. The growth function has 2 people. And this is because, and we spend, so our revenue is like 250K, let's say, a month, and we spend on ads less than 2. So that's like less than 1%, which is like, for the accountants out there, they like pump up your ad spend. Anyway, so we would rather spend less on ads, enable us to bring prices down, so our conversion rate increases. We have to spend less money on expensive salespeople, and because we're charging a lower price compared to the value, hopefully they stay for longer.
Yeah.
And so that's the theory. And what I kind of got that from Amazon. Well, it's a combination of Amazon and just like my personality in terms of like being cost conscious.
Yeah.
Maybe because I didn't grow up with loads of money. And so we don't pay for Slack, for example. We have like 90 people in the Slack team. And so we can't have clients in there. So whenever when we sign a client and they're like, can you come in Slack? We're like, yes, but you have to add us a single channel guest to your Slack account. We don't have Slack Premium, because that would be $1,000 a month for us.
Right.
And so that's just an example of how we would prefer to spend less on marketing, less on stuff we don't really need to spend, in my opinion, in order to reduce cost to then provide more value to customers that stay for longer.
So interesting. One of my questions as you're saying that was going to be, how do you make sure you've actually got the margin to run a profitable business if you're trying to charge lower costs? But I guess you solve that by not spending on shit like Slack.
Exactly. Yeah, trying to spend as little as possible on the things that aren't, like, our number one value is client, so it's like client happiness. So we have to filter everything that we spend on through that. And so do the clients really, the account managers are like, can we just pay for Slack? Because clients do complain, but I'm just not going to do it because it's too expensive. But so that's where the values come in, right? We're filtering everything through, like, is this the best thing for the client? And that $2,000 a month on a LinkedIn ads agency or the $1,000 a month on Slack doesn't necessarily help make our clients happier. So.
Yeah, interesting. I guess a huge piece of that as well is making sure you've got the right team to function within that structure. I guess you also don't spend on an office because you're completely remote.
Exactly.
So you're not forking out,
exactly.
What are you, 70 people, you said?
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine a 7-person office in London.
What are we talking?
I actually have never...
It's got to be north of 10.
I've never paid for an office in my life, so... Yeah, it would be north... obviously, we only have like 20... Well, it wouldn't work anyway because we only have like 3 people in London. So,
right.
But if let's say we were to pay like a co-working membership, £300 a month for the 70 people, that's 300 times 70 a month, to 21,000. Is that right? Fuck yeah, that would really impact.
Not cheap. It's not cheap.
Do you pay for co-working spaces for your team?
I mean, we pay for this space, but not for the entire team. So we're similar. I mean, smaller team. We'll probably be 20 odd by the time. 19, 20 by the time this goes out. But no, we're remote.
You don't pay. There's no benefit for like.
No. Nice. No. I think what we'd rather do is a work from home budget. So we're toying with this idea at the moment. We have things like wellbeing budgets at the moment for each person, but toying with the idea of a work from home budget to give people decent setups. It would still work out cheaper than co-working for everyone.
Yeah, we give X amount. Maybe I shouldn't say, but X amount per year for equipment, work-related.
Yeah. We're thinking a similar sort of thing.
But it isn't like massive.
Yeah. But I don't think you need loads for
a home setup.
Fucking table and a monitor.
Exactly, and a mic.
Decent chair. Yeah, exactly. How do you manage that remote team though? You've got 70 people all around the world.
Yeah.
I imagine some of which you've probably never met.
Yeah.
How do you manage a remote team that large?
So the account management function, as we've just discussed, is actually quite easy because we don't really care what people are doing. We care if the client's happy and they retain.
Yeah.
And so we actually, a year ago, this is an interesting shift. We used to give every client a happiness score, and then we would track that as well as the retentions, because that's like the leading metric to retention. But then we realized that actually clients don't care about being happy so much. They'd actually just prefer if the objectives being hit. So we switched to client objectives being hit. So now the leading metric for the account management function for the pyramid and for the managers, the percentage of their clients where the primary objective is being hit. It's a quarterly thing.
Yeah.
And so that's very easy to manage because we don't really care what they do, where they are. We care if the objective is being hit and their retention scores are above our goal.
Yeah.
It gets much harder to manage what we call management spend, which is spend that isn't directly associated with the client. And so how do we do that? It's like we have OKRs for each person, and then there's a weekly meeting where that they have with their manager to be like, what are we doing to progress on the OKRs? Mm-hmm. That's probably the simplest way to describe it. But it's a much more challenging management skill set to manage management spend versus direct spend.
Sure.
Direct spend, you're just like looking at the numbers, helping them. Management spend is a bit more nuanced, but that's how we do it, the OKRs and weekly meetings.
Interesting you mentioned the happiness thing. We've battled that as well.
Really?
Actually, one of my old mentors said to me that you probably had happy clients leave all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
A number of times, people will say, I love the team, workflow works, I'm actually happy doing this, but I just don't see how this is getting me to where I want to be.
Exactly.
It's quite common. But at the same time, we also have clients where you deliver on all of the objectives, but they're not happy. So it's like, it's tough. I don't think it's either or. Obviously, you want both.
Yeah, but it's just which is more important.
You reckon the objectives are more important.
That was our theory when we switched. Retention is like relatively flat, I would say, before and after switch, so the jury is out. So.
I reckon objective-based is better.
Is that what you do now?
Yeah. Well, we still look at both, but I think objectives-based. And we actually introduced something recently. We used to have these like ridiculously complicated incentives for retention.
For your team?
For client retention. So the team incentives for keeping clients longer.
Yeah, okay.
And then I was like, fuck this. Just made it simpler. And I was like, if you keep a client beyond their initial contract, you'll get a percentage of their payment every single month.
Oh, nice.
Retention after that, through the roof.
Really?
Yeah. Just from like a really simple incentive that actually pays them for keeping clients longer rather than these complicated things that I thought were working.
Yeah.
Simple is usually better, right?
Yeah, that's nice.
Back to the remote team piece. I think I read you've hired 113 people in the last couple of years, I think was a number I saw.
Yeah.
At 0 cover letters read.
Yeah.
How do you find A players without the traditional hiring process and when they're maybe on the other side of the world?
So I think there's two parts. There's like building the demand for people that want to work at your company, and then like the hiring process. So I'll talk about the hiring process. So I think it's from the book Top Grading, where there's two things. There's like the values, I mentioned one earlier, there's 4 of them, and then there's the competencies for the role. And I'll focus this on the account manager role. This is the one that's like the highest velocity and the most important for us. And so we actually just have 2 interviews after the LinkedIn profile screen, not the CV screen. Also, we hate on CVs and cover letters. So it's the LinkedIn profile screen. Then it's the first interview, which is the competency one, like do they have the skills? And the second interview, which is the values one, and also a test, like presentation they have to do. And so that's the process. A couple of extra points. What we have done recently, which I think is working better, is having the person that's going to manage them do one of the interviews.
Yeah.
Because then they can't complain about the person that doesn't work out, basically. So that's one key thing in the process. And then that's probably all I'd say is like just being clear about what you're trying to achieve at each stage in the process. So the first 2 are like, do we think they have the skills to do this? And so that's the LinkedIn profile screen in the first interview. Second interview is, will they fit in culturally? Are they aligned with what we like to do?
Yeah.
So that's the process for the account manager. We don't have 100% hit rate, but
it's pretty good. Is your LinkedIn strategy all about attracting top talent?
My LinkedIn strategy is about blowing up my ego primarily. Secondarily, well, if I had a HR SaaS company, I would be making so much cash. I have a marketing agency, and I posted on marketing for like 2 years, and I got like 17 likes on average.
Yeah.
And so, it was really about blowing up my ego and getting the big numbers. It's also monetized on its own now with sponsored posts, probably too many, but doing them every other day. Anyway, but this comes to the first point in answer of your question, is you need to build a pipeline, right?
Yeah.
Because you have this process to filter, but the more people you have at the start of the filter, the better people you're going to get out. And so our applications for the account manager role went from 50 to 500 a month.
Wow.
After last year when I started doing better on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so then for the clues, or for the audience, like how would I build demand for a new company? I'll just make the brand nice, like pay a designer a lot for the brand. I think that helps. Yeah. What we do on our LinkedIn content strategy for the company page is literally just reposting stuff that our team posts about their work-life balance and about working remotely and stuff. And so that's just like a content feed to try and find more people to apply. And then, like this is your stuff, isn't it? Like make the founder famous. I think that helps a lot. Yeah. Like Elon Musk, I think one of the real reasons he's able to do so much stuff is that everybody wants to work for him because he's so fucking famous. So that's the thing that I would say initially regarding building like talent pipeline for a business.
Yeah, because I wonder why you're obviously very like culture, leadership, management heavy on your content, but that explains why.
I am interested in it.
Yeah.
And it gets more attention, and it does help with hiring pipeline. It does, like, we do obviously get people come inbound to the company that wanting a podcast, but not as much as if I was running a B2B HR SaaS company.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, let's talk through your inbound engine, because you said you only have 2 people in growth. I think you said,
and that includes sales.
Insane. Super cool. How does your inbound engine work? How are you winning clients?
So since like the very first thing we used to do, for the first like 2 years, it was just Google, paid and organic, like ranking for B2B podcast agency, and then bidding on B2B podcast agency and like all the keywords around that. And so we just do the same thing now. And so I think we were a little bit fortunate in that we got the timing right. When we started that, there was like 2 or 3. And so we're able to then build the domain authority over time. We also have a hosting platform, which is very good for SEO because every podcast that runs on it spits out all these links, gets loads of backlinks back. And so that helps with domain authority. With Google Ads, it's still literally the same keyword set that we started with. And so that's like 60%. So it's not really that like magical. What I love about that is that obviously anyone coming through those 2 channels wants to work with an agency to start a podcast. And so the sales skills you need for that is very cheap.
It's pretty low.
Yeah, exactly. And so then that's like 60%. And then a partner network, that's more in the last 1 or 2 years. And then my LinkedIn is like a little bit. LinkedIn and podcasts is maybe like 10%. And then that is pretty much it.
How do you see obviously Google Ads are likely going to be impacted by more people searching through
we're at risk.
LLMs.
We are at risk. So both of those, the ads and organic, we're at risk. I think with the organic, if you're ranking organically in Google, then your AI search is probably not going to be terrible.
Yeah.
Things you can do to optimize it. And so that's like one of the OKRs for this quarter is how can we try and increase our awareness that like everybody's doing that, right?
Yeah.
Google Ads, you're right. That will also be impacted with less people searching. And so we might have to work out
There's a theory that obviously more people are going to search through things like ChatGPT. I don't know if they've confirmed this is going to be their approach or whether it's all theory, but OpenAI are basically saying they're going to flood GPT with ads, essentially, which will probably be dead cheap initially, or at least will drive down the cost of Google Ads.
Yeah, exactly. That would be great for us, I think. Then we just shift some budget to that.
Yeah.
And then we wouldn't have to think too much about it. Because again, I'm not like too concerned about the marketing stuff.
Yeah. But really you're interested in how can we get in front of the people that are clearly already interested in doing this because they're searching for things like B2B podcasting agency.
Yeah, exactly right. And the headwind to that is the competition. There's a lot more agencies just focused on B2B. Mm-hmm. But then our tailwind is the fact that I think there's like 1 or 2 others that have done, that are at our size and have done as many podcasts with like the caliber of clients that we have. Yeah. And so that's our tailwind in that we have more case studies and we have better logos. So that's what we're fighting against for that inbound, the inbound customers.
We're moving down the funnel here a little bit into like nurture. Once you've got the initial interest, you have your own podcast as well.
Yeah.
How does that fit into the process? Because I think you said to me before, you don't use your podcast as a top of funnel.
Yeah. So with the podcast, it used to be better for the business because there used to be confessions of a B2B marketer. But then I got less interested, as we've discussed here, in marketing. And so I switched it to confessions of a B2B entrepreneur because it's very hard to interview on stuff that you don't really care about anymore.
Yeah.
So actually now that ideal listener of that show is not the ideal customer of Fame. The ideal customer of Fame is like marketing leader, 500-person cybersecurity company.
Does that bother you? Are you going to do you care? Are you going to change your approach or?
No, because it's not possible for me to run a marketing show when I don't care about it.
You're just not bothered.
Yeah. So I like it. It can help. Like we have ads for Fame in it, but it's less impactful now after that switch. But I don't think we have an option.
You've still got enough authority from case studies, logos,
brand
equity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Would you ever start a podcast for like reach and top of funnel, or do you see it purely as a like nurturing tool?
Yeah, if I would start another podcast, it would be, I've always been interested in like media brands that are separate to like.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Yeah.
And we tried to do it. We had a really good writer in the team. And so we started to create what was it called? It was called SaaS Marketer. Because what I didn't mention is when I had that job in 2018, so it was actually called SaaS Hacker. It was like an email newsletter with like a SaaS growth case study every day. But then it basically got took by my employer because I wasn't allowed to do anything outside my job.
Right.
And so when they found out about it, they took it. And so I rebranded it as SaaS Marketer. So I think we still have the domain. It's probably still live. And that was just this email list and these blog posts about SaaS growth case studies. And so we tried to revise that and to be like a top of the funnel, kind of like The Hustle, but for SaaS marketing. You know? And so I would potentially do that again if I found a strong, like we call it, edge for the media brand, which is like a strong reason for existing, a strong belief.
Yeah.
That's a potential growth program for Fame. But again, that's not like, it kind of goes a bit against us just trying to focus on that bottom of the funnel piece to reduce marketing costs.
Yeah. I think this is a big play. Hopefully none of my competitors are listening. Probably fucking not. Competitors aren't listening to this. But I think that's a huge play because if you can own, I thought about owning 5 or 10 media brands that can all firstly point back to Kurogo and platform us. But then also we've got 10 outlets to say to clients, we can guarantee you features on platforms like these because we own. Yeah,
that's nice.
I think it's such a huge play. We've tried it a little bit previously, but we've not executed it well yet.
And when you say platform, you mean like a media site?
Yeah, it could be sites, it could be podcasts, newsletters, it could even be as simple as social pages.
Yeah.
I think about like that you mentioned The Hustle, like Morning Brew. Imagine if you had 5-10 of those at your disposal.
Yeah, I think I understand the value. I think the potential drawback is that you have to get, like, you're getting really good at running an agency, a people business. That's what we're good at. Running a media business is, like, it's not too different, but it is like a challenge, And so you're basically up against people that are just doing that.
Yeah.
And so
you're not going to out Morning Brew.
Yeah,
Morning
exactly.
Brew, are you? Yeah. It's a growth channel, but it's also a completely separate business in itself. So it's not as simple as just spring them up.
Yeah. And what I have learned definitely over the past 10 years of entrepreneurship is focus is important.
Absolutely. You've obviously made a lot of mistakes over those 10 years, I'm sure. What are some of the biggest things that if you could go back 4 or 5 years, you'd tell yourself or at least mentor yourself throughout the process to avoid?
Yeah, so getting performance management handled, I think, was a big leap for us. One thing that I tried in 2023, like the podcast sales growth stalled for a little bit, and I was like, we're going to rebrand as a B2B content agency, where we do similar to you, like the social service and an email newsletter service. Because my theory, and I still believe this, if you're trying to build authority of the B2B brand, like you start with social at the top, like get the CEO a bit famous, and then the next easiest thing to do is the email list. And then then after that, you do a podcast because you can grow. Podcasts have massive impact, but they're hard to grow. If you have a social following and an email list, you can grow the podcast. And so I was like, well, why don't we just do these other 2 things as well? And so I built the offer, sent it to a few clients, got a few clients signed up. But then here's a focus thing in that I was really the only person in the business that could design and make those services good. And then I immediately got bored with it after it didn't work for one client and then they churned, And so it could have worked if I became like the account manager and designed the services over a year or two, but then I just couldn't be bothered. So now that's not really a thing anymore. And so that was a distraction, I think, ultimately.
Yeah.
Or I could have just hired someone who had that skill set, but then I didn't want to spend the money. So
your appetite is really interesting. You're almost like, it seems like one of your best skills is that you just want things to be simple.
Yeah. But you learn that through
doing it the other way.
Exactly, yeah. Through getting it wrong.
Any other mistakes that you can think of that are really costly?
With Fame. So, yeah, it almost all comes back to focus. We have that hosting tool that I mentioned that helps with SEO. And then we also have like an AI, like converting the podcast into the written assets, like a very basic tool. That's probably been a distraction as well. Like, because whenever you, I don't think people understand when they build new things, like you build the media site or you build some software, like they don't just like, it's not a one-off cost, It's like you have to maintain these things. And so now we have 2 software applications to maintain, which like cost money and then diverts focus. So I ultimately, looking back, the hosting one might be different because there is a massive SEO benefit. But then with the other one, we could just be paying like $50 a month for someone else to build that and that'd be that thing. But it's also a focus thing, isn't it? What else do we have on the list? We can cut this one out.
Some mistakes you've made that I've got down. Didn't hire fast enough.
Yeah.
And this was a thing at $1 million ARR.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I think what I've done both well and badly is I have, as you were saying with your people in the team, and probably what you've done as well, is that I've done every role throughout the company over the past 5 years. And that's great because then you're like the ultimate authority, people respect you, and you're like the right person to lead the company. But what I think I definitely didn't do fast enough was hand that over quicker.
Right.
It was only like 1.5 to 2 years ago where I was still, we had the head of account management who's managing that function. I was still that head of account management role, which is the most senior role for the client, on like 5 clients like a year and a half ago because I sold them, they came in, and I just wanted to be there. But it's really hard to think about the big problems for the company if you're on a client meeting and the client isn't happy, because then that's like the immediate thing. And so that was a massive, massive benefit, was not being head of account management for anyone. That only happened 3.5 years into the journey. And maybe if that happened like 3 years or 2 years into the journey, we would have grown faster because then my head could have been focused on higher leverage problems.
This is huge, yeah.
So I think it is valuable to do every job in the business and like to finally pull yourself out, but you have to do it at the right speed you have to optimize that speed to optimize the growth. And so I think I did it a bit slow in cases.
I'm very grateful I've managed to do that, actually. I think you can be so much more objective about the business.
Exactly.
If you're not, because like, of course you want your clients to do well. You definitely do. But if you're in meetings every week and you're going into meetings and it's obviously going to be a big meeting, you're wondering whether they're happy and you've got to deal with, small challenges that they have. I think it takes you away emotionally from actually running the business.
Yeah, totally agree.
Is there anything that you think back on and you think, actually, that was an unreal move? Like, I'm so glad we did that.
The initial positioning of the company, still the positioning today, B2B Podcast Agency, I think that was probably the big one. They're still paying dividends. Like there's like 3 of us, I think, 2 in the US and us, that I think are like the primary B2B podcast agencies. And that's been the case for 5 years. And that enables us to get customers pretty cheap. So I think that was an initial good move. Cracking the LinkedIn thing has definitely helped with the growth of the company, primarily with hiring account managers. So that was probably, I think it took like a whole year to focus on, like all my time. And so it may not have been the best thing for the company, but then the primary goal was ego, isn't it? So
it served that.
Yeah. So that was a good move, but it may not have been the best one. And let me try and think if we've got any more. I think the leadership team, like hiring them internally, I think is working out well now. But then we have had, it's kind of been like and they'll be happy for me to say this, 18 months to 2 years of training.
Sure.
But now we're at a point where they are mastering their roles or close to mastering. And so that I think has worked out well. But again, maybe you could have hired externally and then that could have been sorted like a year ago. And then could have had other time to do other stuff. But
Quite possibly. I mean, what was the hardest part of your growth? Was it 0 to 1? Was it 1 to 3?
I think probably, 0 to 1 was the hardest because I was like account manager, CEO, salesperson. And so it was like intense, I think, for how much time I was working, etc. But then it probably got easier with every year, I think, in terms of my personal like stress and workload every year, a tiny bit.
Interesting. See, I found like 0 to the first 3 employees relatively easy. Hard, but like in relation to everything else, relatively easy. For me, 3 to like 10, 12, mate, so really? Tough. Because I was like, I'm still doing everything I was doing before. I'm
still trying to manage.
But then
trying to manage all of them.
People, yeah. But then things get slightly easier when you get a management team in place, of course.
Did you, before you started Karugo, did you work in corporate?
I've never had a job.
Yeah, okay. And so I came in with like a little buffer, right? Because you do manage, like right from the start when you're in EY or Accenture, you manage people, interns or people in India, for example, offshore teams. So I had that little buffer, you know?
Yeah.
So that definitely helped.
I remember my first team that came on board, they'll probably remember this very, maybe not so fondly. I was like, week 1, all right, this is what you do. Here are your clients.
Really?
But actually, the ones that went through that they're the best.
They are the best, but they had to go through the fire, you know?
They hated me for 6 months. But now they're brilliant. So I think part of that, I think, is...
It's a kind of high risk because if, it was either high risk or like very skillful by you because you assess their personality and you're like, this person can take it. Because if that's the case, they pass it, it's great. If they can't take it, then actually the slower burn is better. But like it obviously worked.
I'll pretend that it was intentional and I knew that was going to happen. Final question, Tom. What are you interested in for the future? What are you going to be doing in 5 years? What's fascinating you right now?
Yeah, like in the past 6 months, I think, have got really enjoy, this might sound weird, reviewing you get the monthly P&L, right? I get it like 7 days after the end of the month. And I just love going through every line and then writing my notes on what we need to tweak or improve. And so when we get obviously it's like the end of the world if the EBITDA number is low or too low, but then if it's high, I just feel great. And so I think this is what I'm going to do more of is like finance, like managing the balance sheet, managing the P&L, and just setting the goal and seeing if we can hit it. And so that I think that's what I'm interested in the moment is probably what I think the next 5 years are going to be. If we go back to the history, it's maybe like 7 years marketing, and then it's like ops management for like 5 years, and then I've been getting more and more interested in finance, and so that might be the next 5 years. Let's see.
Love it. Well, Tom, I've certainly learned a lot throughout this episode, and I'm sure our listeners have as well. If you are listening or watching to this and you've learned anything in this episode, please do leave a like, hit subscribe on the channel, because that means that we can bring even more cool guests like Tom onto the podcast and share even more amazing content with you. Tom, for those that have enjoyed this and want to check you out, LinkedIn the best place to go? Is there anywhere else?
Tom Hunt on LinkedIn or Fame.so, the website.
There you go. They'll both be linked, so make sure you check out Tom's work because he's really smashing it. So, Tom, thank you so much. Been a pleasure.
Thank you, Sam.